as Will Hall leaves the line on his final of the weekend. Welcome to Doune, just to the west of Stirling in central Scotland, for our last meeting of the 2025 season here at Doune. Featuring rounds 27 and 28 of the British Hillclimb Championship, rounds 21-22 of the British Hillclimb Cup, and the final rounds of the Guys and Scottish Championship and the Lowland Highland Speed Championships. It's a bright and sunny, chilly day here at the King of the Hills, and we welcome spectators on the course and on our live stream around the world. As usual here at Doune, our competitors have travelled from all over the UK, with 9 up from Devon and Cornwall in the extreme south, and many others from Highlands of Scotland, from Caithness in the far north. Today's programme is as follows. The car on the line now, John Bruce, is the first car of the class runs. We'll have run through the interclub classes first of all, which are most of the drivers in the Scottish Championship. Then we'll have the National Championship runners, and then the top 12 runoff for the 12 fastest registered British Championship contenders. We had a full day of practice here yesterday, 4 practice runs for everybody. And every day, the fastest time in practice yesterday was set by Sean Gould, with 35.92 from Will Hall, 36.43, and Dave Duran, 36.72, tied with Wallace Mingies. No Matt Ryder here this weekend, having been claimed as champion at Prescott 2 weeks ago. His wife Kirst has since given birth, and so Matt is at home being a good father. His first weekend as champion of the British Hillclimb Championship. So no Matt Ryder here this weekend, so Sean Gould is here with the car, running by himself in that car and running in his proper position as number 7 in the running order. Generally Sean's been running earlier on in the batches because he's double driving with Matt. So Sean will be running in the last batch, 5th car from the end. So these 4 drivers going up now are from our Scottish Championship classes, and these, if you're on the site and have a programme, these start on page 20 of the programme. And the first car we've seen was 716 John Bruce in the MGZR, which he shares with son Ewan, who we'll see shortly. John Bruce's time for that one was a 58.02. 58.02 for John Bruce. And then we saw Jody Gordon, the class record holder, in the Peugeot 205. Again, not as in the programme. The class record holder is Jody Gordon, and the time of 52.09. His time today was a 52.09. So in fact, he's exactly equal to his class record on his first run. A bit of a spin there for Jim King at the top of his bray. Pull some mud and dirt onto the track, so we'll have the marshal out to sweep that up. But Jim is the last car in this batch, so we'll have a bit of time to get rid of all that debris on the track. So I say Jody Gordon's time 52.09, equaling his class record. After that we had Guy McKenzie, and he's running in class A5 for road sports cars between 1400 and 1700cc, and his time's a 50.14. He's shared with his brother Jamie, who is the class record holder. And the final car there was Jim King in the Mazda. He shared with his son Michael, and Jim's time is a 56.41. So we have a replay coming up on the screen of Jim King. His ventures at the top of his bray. He runs wide onto the grass on the outside, back on and on his way. So a bright, crisp, clear, cold morning here. 6 degrees when I got up this morning at Doune. And certainly the sunshine is out, and hopefully we'll stay dry all day. We've had a good dryish day yesterday, and some good times. And it's a competitive competition across the classes. Unfortunately, a number of non-starters apart from Matt Ryder, and we'll go through those as the day develops. My name is John Brown, by the way, and I have been commentated here by myself, in fact, this weekend. But obviously with the help of the wonderful stream from Rich Danby. And if you're on site, you can still see the whole hill on Rich's stream. If you tune into YouTube, you'll find a link to the Doune stream. This first batch returned to Paddock, so we see some of the big single-seaters, over 2 single-seaters who have had their last practice run. We'll see them in about an hour's time. About 90 cars here today, 90 cars and drivers, so quite a small field. We were finished yesterday after 4 practice runs at 3:30 in the afternoon. So hopefully we'll have an accident-free, incident-free day today, and we'll get people on the way back home again before it's too late for dinner tonight. If you're new to the stream, welcome. If you haven't seen Doune before, welcome. It's been going here at the Cars of Cambus since 1968. And a few improvements over the summer, actually, since the last meeting. As you're looking, there are some new barriers between the oak tree and garden gate, and also at the top of the hill. We had a tree fall down at the top of the hill over the barriers during one of the storms this year, and so new barriers there. And also, if you remember, we had a Porsche went off a year ago. In fact, between garden gate and oak tree, we've got new barriers there as well. Also a new PA system on the hill, so if you're on the hill watching, hopefully you'll have a better experience than you had the last time you were here, and you should be able to hear us all right at the top of each parade as you fancy a walk up to the top of the hill. And welcome to you all from all over the world. Stephanie Kent watching from New Zealand, and we've got Australians here, and French, B and Tom from France, regulars on the stream. And also a message from Wayne Penrose out in Australia saying, yes, it is a much better weather than it was when you were here in June, Wayne. British Championship, of course, we crowned our champion Matt Ryder at the last meeting at Prescott. The British Hillclimb Cup is still up for grabs, and 3 drivers in contention. Jonathan Varley in his Predator, David Warburton in the Gould, and Jimmy Harris in the Formula Ford Van Diemen. When we get to those drivers come up, I'll explain a bit more of the situation, but unfortunately David Warburton not here this weekend. So he'll be using those 2 postal scores as some of his dropped scores. There are 24 rounds in all, and the best 16 rounds count towards your final total. And actually both Jonathan Varley and Dave Warburton have got the maximum of 16 9-pointers, 16 class wins. But there is points available for breaking the class record. And Jimmy Harris has one of those from earlier in the season. So he needs to score some more 9s this weekend and also next weekend at Lowton Park. Unfortunately for Jimmy, there's only 2 entrants in his class this weekend at Doune, himself and his father. So the maximum number of points he can score is actually 6 points for each of his runs today, unless he breaks the class record, in which case he'll get 10 points for doing that. So all go down to the final weekend at Lowton Park. It's just next weekend, so a very short time to wait for the end of the season. In the Scottish Championship, Gary Warren in his Empire has been is declared champion again in the overall championship. But there's still a battle being fought in the road car division between David Reid and Thomas Rapson, both in Subaru Imprezas, and separated by 1 point as we go into the final round today. And the Scottish Championship is the better of your 2 runs, which count towards your championship position, your class position. In the British Hillclimb Cup, both class runs today count for points. We don't like make it simple for people to understand, just make it complicated. But we will get you through, I'm sure, by the end of the day. So that batch of cars is down at the bottom of the hill. As you can see, the start line if you're on the and there's the start line at the top of the hill from successive pictures there from Rich. And that was the car still coming down at the moment. So we've already seen a class record equal by Jody Gordon in his Peugeot 205. Now in practice this morning, Ewan Bruce was below his class record in the class Junior 1, J1. And we'll see him in this badge very shortly. The non-starter in this class in the programme is number 17, Ian Wright, in his Honda Jazz. And this is Graham Shee in his 1 litre turbocharged Ford Fiesta. Who was actually second quickest in practice yesterday behind Jody Gordon, but good 2.5 seconds slower than Jody yesterday. So after Graham Shea is Peter Lawton in his Peugeot 106 Rally 1400cc Peugeot. Graham Shea's at the top of the hill at East Bray. No problems have run so far. Through past the cone, marking the end of the S's, past the new barrier, and onto the finishing line. And this first time is 56.74. Peter Lawton, the Peugeot, is followed up by Anthony Reid in a 1270cc Datsun Cherry. So these are the road cars up to 1400cc, variety of different hatchbacks. Peter Lawton leads his way through the S's around the last corner. Heading across the line should be the 58.26. That puts him 4th at the moment in class. And Anthony Reid now the Datsun up to top of East Bray into sunshine, followed by Malcolm McDonald in the first of 2 Citroen C2s we have in class A2. So Anthony Reid's time is a 61.25 for Anthony Reid. Still got Campbell Gordon to come, but he'll be changing seats with son Jody. So this is Malcolm McDonald and Ewan Catterson in their Citroen C2s. Faster of the 2 yesterday was Ewan Catterson by over a second, 57.95 to 58.99. So what can we see today from Malcolm McDonald? There's a 58.35 from Malcolm McDonald. To be followed up by Ewan Catterson, and then Brian Hunter, 1600cc Mini R53 turbocharged. This is the first of the road, so it's over 2 litres, which is where this battle for Scottish Road Car Championship is taking place. across the line, 55.64. So that's a substantial lead there in the Class A2, in the Citroen C2 class, we'll call it today. Brian Hunter followed up as the first of our two contenders for the Scottish Road Car Championship. Thomas Rapson from the Subaru Impreza. The last time we were here in June, Thomas was sharing his father's Audi. It was a Impreza back on song again. Brian Hunter topped the hill. Only just a win mini this weekend. Brian Hunter's time was a 55.84. Thomas Rapson's Subaru, followed by father Tommy. Thomas setting quickest times of the day so far. Across the meadow at Water Beach Bray. And on through the S's. Around the cone, into the last corner. And across the line is 48.44. 48.44 for Thomas Rapson. Tommy Rapson followed forward, and then David Reid will leave the line in his Subaru Impreza. David Reid off the line, 2.28 seconds for plus 64 feet. And Tommy Rapson 50.32 in the Audi. David Reid not setting Rapson equaling times at the moment. No purple sector, red sector from David at the moment. So it looks like could be Thomas will have the upper hand after this first run. Yes, because David's now already past 48 seconds. That's a 49.85 for David Reid. So Thomas Rapson leads the way by over a second there. And there we get Campbell Gordon, the last runner back in Class A1. Shared with record holder son Jody. Campbell's followed up by Rory Matheson in a Vauxhall Nova 1400cc engined Westfield. Unusual to see Westfield with such a small engine, but this is running in the up to 1400cc road sports class. There's Rory Matheson 1400cc, he'll be followed by Colin McAteer in the next class up, which is up to 1700, where we've already seen Guy McKenzie. Colin McAteer and his Caterham will follow Rory Matheson. A time for Campbell Gordon is 54.34, which puts him into second in class behind son Jody. Still no sign of you and Bruce. I think it comes. Oh, and Rory Matheson's come to a halt at junction. Just cruised up into junction to the escape road at junction. I didn't see anything happening on the screen. I wasn't watching at that point. So Rory coming to halt. Colin McAteer hasn't left the line yet. So first chance to draw breath as we have one car stopped. So lots of people across the other side of the world in New Zealand and Australia tuning in today. And good to see all our regulars tuning in. As I say, Tom Radinger from France and Eric Loesch from Lower Saxony. So welcome once again to the stream. Well, there's Rory going down the hill in his Westfield. Obviously, no damage to the car, so maybe just an engine issue that forced him to come to a halt. Well, a failed run for Rory for this particular time. I don't think he got a flag, so it's definitely a failed run coming up in the timing screens. Hello to Mark Robinson from Brisbane. The quickest tin top in practice yesterday, Wayne Penrose asking the question, the quickest tin top in practice yesterday was Donald McCaskill in his Mitsubishi Lancer. Right, number 79 in the British Championship runners, but no tin top runoff this weekend. The tin top challenge finished at Prescott. So if you have a programme, in fact, here at Doune, you can ignore the tin top challenge runoff tables on page 19. There were no tin top challenge here this weekend. As Colin McAteer leaves the line, and he's followed up by Jamie McKenzie, whose brother we've already seen, and who Jamie is a class record holder. If you look at these cars in the programme, it is page 20 and 21. And in fact, yes, we don't have a class record shown for a Class A5 in the programme. But it is Jamie McKenzie at 49.68. That's a 54.35 for Colin McAteer. Apologies if you hear noise of cars across the commentary. It's just where I'm sitting next to the start line, so the tyre warming area is very close to me. I'll try and switch off if it gets too loud, but apologies if my commentary maybe disappears in the noise of cars revving up. But Jamie quite twitchy through the last corner there. That's a new class record for Jamie, 49.25. 49.25. So one class record equalled, one class record broken already in this first batch this morning. Now, Alexander Reid, Sandy Reid in the Luego Mark II rotary engined Caterham lookalike being pushed back from the start line there. Obviously some issue with that car. So it looks like Sandy will not be coming. We now have John Welsh in the Westfield. XTR2 1300 turbocharged engine. John still saying the car's too fast for the driver, but he gets up quite well. And John Wells leaves the line, popping and banging for the turbocharged engine. And following John Welch is the first of 4 Mazdas, or 3 Mazdas. We've already seen Jim King have a moment at Toby's Bray. We now Andrew Moyers on the hill, but we've got John Welch, the Toby's Bray now. In the Westfield XTR2. John's also been known to drive a Ford GT40 replica. It's a 53.72 for John Welch. So here we go with a few Mazdas here now in the Mazda class, a separate class in the Scottish Championship and in a number of other championships across the country. The Mazda, very popular starting car for hillclimbing. And Andrew Moyer crosses the line at 59.91. And he's followed by Alan Cuthbert and then Mike King. And Mike King was the fastest in practice by a good couple of seconds from his father Jim. So Alan Cuthbert's time is 57.14. He's pushing second at the moment. Michael King should be in the low 54 second bracket, perhaps 50, 53, 54. Class record 51.82. So I expect Jim to Mike tonight take the lead in the class. It's a 52.46, so not that far off the class record. Now we've got the first, at the end of our badge, we've got a couple of double driven cars. This is Leslie Sheridan in the X-Formula 3 Reynard 903. Sorry, Scott Sheridan. Scott Sheridan shared with Leslie. Just lining him up again at the start line. C4 for racing cars up to 100 cc's, and there's a Scott Sheridan. Not surprisingly, perhaps quickest of the day of those runners so far. As a time for Scott Sheridan, 45.23. 45.23. And the last runner in this batch is Alex Howells, one of our long distance travellers from Lymington in the south coast of England. Regular with his wife Jenny here at Doune, and switched this year from running in the road saloon classes to the classic and thoroughbred cars in the same Hillman Super Imp they've used for many years. So this is Alex will be first up, Jenny will follow later. Replay from Scott Sheridan. He may have a little bit of a, oh yes, he ran wide at junction into the outside of the corner, but no problems really. A little bit of sweeping for the marshals. So the question's been asked online, obviously a hill record today. Well, the hill record is been standing for a couple of years now to Alex Summers, the 34.21, which is not as in the programme. 34.21 is Alex Summers' hill record. The programme is 34.91, but that is his class record. 34.21 was set in a runoff in 2022. Been a difficult year for the top climbers this year. There's been no hill records in any of the top 12 runoffs. Big issue this year is the supply of tyres. Once Avon stopped producing tyres for hill climbing, well, Avon stopped producing tyres full stop. And the new supply of expected tyres from Nova, who have taken over the rights for tyres. Nova, based in Portugal, those tyres have not arrived yet. So I would say it's doubtful we'll see a hill record, but never say never. And Alex Howell is followed up by Ewan Bruce in his MGZR. And Alex Howell's a 61.60. And here's Ewan Bruce in his last outing in the junior class, turned 16 a couple of weeks ago, and had his first run out in a single-seater at Golspie. Paul Rose gave him a chance in his Force TA, and just to make it harder for Ewan, they sent him out in slick tyres, a wet track, first runner of the day. But he coped well and he's looking quick today. So he would have set a new record in practice if practice rounds counted for records. He was nearly 1 second under his record in that practice round. So how's he doing today? Obviously fastest in class because he's only a runner. So the record he's aiming at is a 58.59. And 48 through the S's means it's possible. Very close. 58 seconds exactly for Ewan Bruce. 58 seconds exactly. So maybe we will say hill record later on, because that in the first batch of the day is 2 class records and 1 class record equalled. So, yes, an amazing first batch of cars there with Ewan Bruce finishing that off with a class record. 58 seconds exactly. So obviously we didn't see the Lego of Sandy Reid, and presumably pushed away from start area here, and so we obviously can see Sandy in his first run anyway. So with Matt Ryder's not here, another non-starter this week is Jack Cottrell, who's not seen the Dallara. He had an off at Prescott a couple of weeks ago, but Jack Cottrell's not here either. So Les Much in the GWR Raptor, who was entered, is not competing. David Warburton's not here. So we're looking at fairly well-defined possible top 12 runners for this today's runoffs. There were 12 drivers really quite clear of the field yesterday, and there should be favourites for today, but obviously anything can happen. One mistake, one problem could eliminate you from a top 12 challenge. So looking at the runners and riders, we've got Sean Gould, Will Hall, Dave Juren, Wallace Mingies, Trevor Willis, Harry Pick, Nicola Mingies from the over 2 litre class, Alex Coles and Paul Hayes from the turbocharged class, Jonathan Barley from the 2 litre class, Will Hamer from the 1100cc class, and Darren Gumbley from the 1600cc class. Those are possible top 12 runners. The next runner after that, in yesterday's times, it was actually Mark Schlanker in his 600 Force TA. So, and Mark has certainly never qualified for top runoff before, so it'll be interesting to see what happens during these class runs. Hello to Lee Corbett from the Channel Islands. Yes, an epic first batch of runs there, Lee. So now we're into the next batch of cars, and this is the classic mini here of Peter Weering in the modified series up to 1400cc class. He's running by himself in the class today. Modified slopes, like some interesting vehicles here. We've got Mel Chisholm coming up shortly in his Ford Z-Tech engine, 2 litre Ford Anglia. So Peter Weering up through onto the meadow, followed by Alan Ligertwood in the first of a couple of Vauxhall Novas we have. Peter Weering goes across the line at 70.65, and Alan Ligertwood and the Vauxhall Nova at the top of his bray coming through the trees into the S's. Mel Chisholm leaves the line in that Z-Tech engine Ford Anglia. That's a 53.45 for Alan Ligertwood. And then following Paul Mel will be Paul Ramsey in the Opel version of the Vauxhall Nova. Blue smoke from the Anglia coming out of Garden Gate there. Still trailing the blue smoke up towards Junction. So Paul Ramsey's left the line in the Opel Corsa. Two quick Ford Fiestas. Mel Chisholm still blowing out smoke there from that Anglia all the way to the top of the hill. So 68.81 for Mel. And Mark Rennie in the Ford Fiesta. 2 Ford Fiesta, Mark Rennie, followed by Gary Warren, British Hillclimb champion, who's now sold his single-seater Empire, and he's out his Ford Fiesta, which he hasn't raced for 3 or 4 years. This is the Sports Saloon Libre class. So slightly more than modified. Time for Paul Ramsey with a 53.48. And Mark Rennie across the line with a 51.68. Here's Gary Warren in his lime green Ford Fiesta. He's sold his Empire Evo, going to a climber in the Channel Islands. And he's bought a new Empire Evo. Well, not a new one, but he's bought a replacement Empire Evo. And more of that later. Gary Warren through the S's. 50.65 for Gary, 50.65. So he takes the lead in that class from Mark Rennie. Now, unfortunately, we lost Grant Sinclair in the Maguire Imp. Number 46 in the programme. He had a problem with that steering rod yesterday. Not on the hill, but in the paddock. So we know Grant Sinclair in the Maguire Imp, but we have Barton Chittenden in his Pulsar 919cc engine in the Sports Libre up to 1400. And then solo in the C2, Class C2 is Christopher McDade in his 1800cc Rover K Series engine in an Imp. The time for Martin Chittenden is 51.91. Oh, Chris McDade having a bit of a moment at Tom Beach Bray. Avoids the grass, but still a bit of a sideways issue there for Chris in this Hillman 57.77. 57.77. Now we're into single seaters. Tom Graham, number 50, in the Mega Pin K7. So Tom Graham is followed by Leslie Sheridan. You've seen husband Scott already do a 45.23. Tom Graham 54.52. Leslie followed up by, now this is Charlie Forsyth, number 86. In the programme he's listed as being in the British Championship runners, but he's been moved to the Interclub class and competing here today in the Class C4 for the Interclub Scottish Championship. Leslie Sheridan's time was a 48.09. Charlie Forsyth and Gary Dixon followed him up. They should be the quickest of the. And competing here today in the Class C4 for the Interclub Scottish Championship. Leslie Sheridan's time was a 48.09. Charlie Forsyth and Gary Dixon followed him up. They should be the quickest of the quickest runners in the class. Yes, Charlie is 3 S's in 35 seconds. That should be 46, 47, maybe less, or much less, 43.32. 43.32 for Charlie Forsyth. Guy Dixon goes up to East Bray. We've got Rory Seaton on the line in his fourth HC. Oh no, and got Gary Dixon off at top of East Bray, off to the right hand side of the track. So there'll be a delay now. You come out of East Bray, around wide, and across the track, off the edge of the screen towards the large verge on the right hand side of the track at the top of the hill. So recovery will be going up shortly. So that's Gary Dixon off the track there. You can just see the car behind the tree. So there'll be a delay now while we recover Gary and his car from that situation.
to take some effort to get that out. It's not a bad crash in terms of damage, but it's in a big dip.
More importantly, did you get her done?
I did.
Excellent, well done.
So
Any lace with a metal, you know, it's got the metal crimp on the end. It's a waste of time. Because it invariably comes off.
Yeah. Well, you know, at least if it lasts that long, the metal comfortable for actually.
What do you think I do? I'm talking about a week.
Oh, right, okay.
So coming up, the next two cars due on the hill are Rory Seaton and his father David. Rory we've seen for 2 years now in single-seaters, and he's now got a Force HC 1340 engine in it. But for David, who we last saw in a Ligier sports car, and before that in a BMW 4.9 BMW engine Pilbeam sports car, this is a return to single-seaters after a good nearly 30 years away from them. He was having trouble with the Ligier, got rid of it to the driver down south, and in exchange he has got this OMS CF09 with a Duratec 2-litre engine in it. His first run in the car was yesterday, and he got his times down gradually. He started off in the 57s and was down to eventually to 48.02. David, back in the 1990s, was driving the ex-Martin Griffiths 2.8 turbocharged Pilbeam MP53, and he actually scored a fourth place at Fintry in the British Hillclimb Championship runoff, and a couple of 9th and a 12th as well. He also scored an 8th position in the big Pilbeam sports car. So not a newcomer to single-seaters, but certainly a few years since he drove one, but seems to be settling in well, and we wish him the best of luck with the car. And we're now, as you see, the top of the hill, just pulling the car, hopefully, from the grass verge. We had this issue, I think, last year with somebody. There's Gary Dix himself, so Gary's out of the car, supervising operations. There's always these locations, hill climbs, where it's just a little bit difficult to get a car out of. Where the car will have been a dip, and you've got to be careful with the wings, etc. But here's the car appearing, the nose wing is obviously gone off. If I remember right, there's a pile of grass cuttings up there in that part of the hill. So the car, as I say, Gary is out of the car, and now the nose has appeared, and we'll get there very soon. So David Seaton and Rory Seaton will follow up in their respective single-seaters. And they were into that after the classic and thoroughbred road cars, modified cars and competition cars. Now the last car of the classic cars is John Albiston's wonderful Brabham BT38. Now this is car running in homage to Graham Hill in Jagermeister colours. But this is a Formula 3 version of the car. BT38C, the BT38, one of the last, I suppose, of Brabham's customer racing cars. Followed by BT40, which is not nearly so successful as the BT38. And this car, which John Albertson drives, is actually new to the Australian International Racing Organisation and was raced by Brian Maguire in British Formula 3 back in 1972. The car was then passed through a number of hands of British and English and Scottish drivers until John was the latest owner, and he got a BDG engine fitted to it, 2-litre engine, and painted it in the Jagermeister colours. Graham Hill drove a BT38 in Formula 2. And yes, certainly John's been in this car now for, I think, for 3 or 4 years. It previously appeared actually in Scotland, owned by Stuart Robb, where it used a different set of bodywork. So a long history for this car, now 53 years old. We're seeing a replay of Gary Dixon coming up here now. So he's coming up through East Bray, up to the top of the hill. And he just runs wide. Oh, just didn't quite go on the verge, but just the left rear wheel just caught the dip at the top of East Bray, and he went across the grass, across the track, turned, reversed back into the pile of grass cuttings, and he went out to see the car fully out of the grass, but Gary getting strapped back in again. The wheels presumably are all pointed in the right direction. The front wing's still in the car actually. He did go in backwards, so we're going to tow him back down. They're certainly thinking about it. And that's the way these days. You've got to have your helmet on, your gloves on, and all properly strapped in for going down the hill as well as up the hill. And it looks like he's going to come down under his own steam, or is he just going back towards the recovery truck? But yes, he's going back down under his own steam, and you will see him appearing down back in the paddock very shortly. So Gary Dixon. And that's Gary Dixon now cruising down past me here at the start line. And hopefully we'll see Gary out this afternoon for his second run. Yes, Chuck Ramsey, who you'll see later in this orange Opel Manta, is the man in charge of keeping Doune here. The grass fair all neat and tidy. So, Gary, I'll have a word with Gary about upsetting his carefully mown pile of cuttings at the top of the hill. But, just bringing the recovery vehicles down, and once they're down, we'll just go on with the rest of the climb and release Rory Seaton into the hill. The rescue van there showing allegiance to the Scottish Motorsport Marshals Club, which was set up back in the early 1970s and has grown and grown to be the premier marshals club in Scotland, and also helps out at other venues across the UK on all sorts of events, rallies, sprints, hill climbs, race meetings. If you're local and you're watching on the hill here and you fancy getting involved with marshalling, either here at the hill or elsewhere in Scotland, go and have a word with the guys in the van down in here by the start line and get yourself involved in marshalling if you feel that way inclined. Just in the background, Sandy Reid's Lego getting pushed back, having failed to come to the start line, so he is now taking advantage of this gap to push his car back into the paddock. Yeah, so in this class, we've just seen the Gary Dixon class, and the fastest runner yesterday was Charlie Forsyth, and he is again fastest of the runners today. Gary Dixon was only third in class yesterday, behind Scott Sheridan. In fact, he took 3 practice runs over the 2 days, so it looks like he didn't take a practice run this morning. That had been Gary's first run on the hill, so maybe a slight change of conditions may have caught him out. But here comes Rory Seaton up towards the start line. So Rory Seaton in this car, which originally was climbed in the Channel Islands by Andy Bugard, and then went to Ray Rowan in the Midlands, and then it's lain unused for about 15 years before Rory and David picked it up. So lovely looking car, well presented as usual, as David's cars always are. And Rory's left the line. Rory was down to 44.03. Safely through East Bray up to the top of the hill. Potentially quickest of the day so far, 42.90 for Rory. 42.90 is the quickest of the day so far. David Seaton now in the OMS. 2009 build, carbon fibre chassis. 2-litre Duratec engine. Ex-Matt Oliver. Matt Oliver was a 2007 British Sprint champion in a gold. The Matt Oliver's colours of dark blue. I'm sure that will change later on as David gets used to the car and gets it to his liking. 47.22 for David Seaton. 47.22. So now we're into the classic and thoroughbred cars. A very smoking Cliff McKinnon, his Triumph TR7. Cliff also has a TVR, and he's got a Triumph TR2 in the Paddock. He's very smoky today. He was smoky a bit yesterday. He's slightly worse today, but presumably he knows all about it, and he will be making allowances. Very close to the inside barrier at the last bend, but across the line now in a 66.44. Richard Morris in a Triumph GT6. It is a GT6, although it has an Ashley hardtop on it. It is a GT6 engine, 2-litre engine. Mark II GT6. So it's Richard Morris as a TVR. Cliff McKinnon has a Triumph TR2, the Paddock. Richard Morris also hillclimbs a TVR. Richard Morris's time 65.92. And Tom Marr now in his MG Midget. Tom Marr's I've seen Tom hillclimb in this car for many years. That's a 59.99 for Tom, takes the lead. The next car is Alex Hazelwood in the ex-Donald third Turner, running actually in the thoroughbred modified car class, number 61. So running a class by himself, obviously a modified as opposed to a road car. This is the Turner which Donald third raced way back in the late 1960s and certainly 1970. Turner's built in Wolverhampton by Jack Turner. A rival perhaps to the Austin Sprite MG Midget in his day, but much smaller production, maybe just over 300 built altogether with various engine sizes. So from 51 to 66 we had Turners built, and we're still racing them here now all these years later. That's a 67.09 for Alex Hazelwood. Galloway has a bit of a excitement at the top of his bray. And for Malcolm's a 63.65. And then Jenna Hill's a Hillman Super Imp, followed by the biggest car here this weekend, I think, and it's Steve Bryant in his 4.7 litre Ford Falcon. The Ford certainly fills the hill as it goes up through the tunnel. Has been to the 61.60. Falcon tail slide through Garden Gate. And the time for Jenna Hill's 59.98. He takes the lead in that class by 100th of a second from Tom Marr. But Steve Bryant should be a bit quicker than that. And he weaves his way through the S's. He should be in the mid-50s with this car. 56.11 takes the lead in the class. And then the last car there was John Albiston in the Brabham I talked about earlier. And now we're into the British classes, which start in the programme on page 14. And this is Class A1. And the first guy is Richard Weaver, sharing car with son Tom. The Weavers raced, used this car at Doune back in June. When they had a break from the Empire. Now they've actually sold the Empire and are back in the Saxo. It's usually driven in the hills by Richard's daughter Lizzie. So the time now for John Albiston going back to the classic class is a 50.28. Here's Richard, now the double drive at the end of his match. He's followed up by Stuart Wood in the modified Mini. Time for Richard Weaver is a 56.35. And so the programme shows them in Class A2, but they're actually in Class A1, the Weavers. Stuart Wood is in Class C1. On page 14. And these are followed up by Alan Reid in the Peugeot in Class C2. So time for Stuart Wood is a 51.74. After Alan Reid, we have Paul Harris in the Formula Ford Van Diemen, shared with son Jimmy. Time for Alan Reid, 52.49, also shared with his son Stuart. So Paul Harris 795. And then the next car is the first of the single-seater double drivers, which is Tricia Davies, number 802. Paul Harris' son Jimmy in contention of the British Hillclimb Cup, but really needs to try setting records, Jimmy, I'm afraid, to make sure he has a chance of winning in the end. Paul Harris, a 53.64 for Paul Harris. Trish Davies, sharing car with husband Terry. It's a Force TA with one of Terry's TDK Yamaha V8 in the back of it. And Trish Davies a 52.02 brings that batch to a close. So let's go back and try and bring you up to date with the positions in the various classes, starting with the inter-club classes for Scottish Championship runners. Ewan Bruce in the junior class, a new class record for 58 seconds exactly. Class A1, road saloons up to 1400, and it's Jody Gordon equaling his class record with a 52.09 from Camel Gordon 54.34 and Graham Shee 56.74. In Class A2 is Ewan Catterton and his Citroen 55.64, and Malcolm McDonald and his Citroen 58.35. In the over 2 litre saloons, where the road championship battle is going on, is Thomas Rapson taking the initial advantage 48.44 from David Reid 49.85 and Tommy Rapson 50.32. The Caterhams led by Jamie McKenzie 49.25, a new class record from brother Guy 50.14 and Colin McAteer 54.35. John Welsh running himself in Class A6 at 53.72. Michael King leading the Mazdas at 52.46 from Jim King 56.41. Peter Wearing himself in Class B1. In Class B2 is Alan Liggardwood in Nova 53.45. Mel Chisholm 68.81. Class C0 scores leavers, and it's Gary Warren in the Fiesta, a 50.65 from Mark Rennie, 51.68, and Paul Ramsey, 53.48. Martin Chittenden, Chris McDade alone in their classes. Class C4, Charlie Forsyth leads in a 43.32 from Scott Sheridan, 45.23, and Leslie Sheridan, 48.09. The two Seatons in the classes of their own. In the classic, I talked about road cars, is Stephen Bryant in the Ford Falcon, 56.11, from Jenny Howells, 59.98, and Alex Tom Marr, 59.99. And then we've got Alex Hazelwood and John Albertson running on their own. And that's where we are with all those classes, and we're next batch will be into the full batch of British runners. So as I say, Tom and Richie Weaver have now sold their Empire Evo, and it's gone to Gary Warren. And meanwhile, the Weavers have bought the slightly newer Empire Evo, the Empire Evo 3 of Tom and Steve Morgan. So a movement of the Empires around. We should see all those cars back out again on the hills next season. Richard and Tom Weaver having a fun weekend up here in their sitch in Saxo. More road going than many cars in the road going production car category. But Tom got down yesterday in practice to a 54.04. So the class record under 50 seconds set by Derek Rothney in his well-developed Clio many years ago, well 2 years ago actually, after many years of trying to get below 50 seconds. So here, quick turn around, there's Tom Weaver in the Citroen, ready to go. Tom Weaver's target is Fowler's 56.35. Followed up by Richard Andrews, who had an interesting journey to get here on Friday. He went as far as Carlisle when he had a problem with his motorhome and trailer, and had to offload the Porsche and drive it up here on the road. Luckily it was a road going Porsche, and he was driving it back home again after the meeting today. So Tom Weaver's 53.32. And the Citroen is Richard Andrews running in Class A2 by himself. down to 51.26 yesterday. Porsche GT4 RS. So yeah, we have to drive that all the way back home to the middle of England. 49.63. So that's a good improvement there for Richard. I think it's his first time here at Doune. No John Pitting Class B, unfortunately. On to Class C1. And it's now John Wood in the shared Mini. Stuart with a 51.74, John Wood 52.77. So first dip there to Stuart Wood. Class record holder in the Peugeot 205. Almost the same, so spectacular. Class record a bit out of reach, that's a 47.62, so nearly 2 seconds slower. Jock Ramsey and the local band smoking a bit this weekend. End of a hard season. Runs wide at the top of his bay into the groove, the top, not off the road, just into the groove, into the tarmac. But doesn't join Gary Dixon in the grass cutting. It's a 50.21 for Joe, 50.21. Jonathan Williamson is now in the hill of this Porsche, just himself this weekend. Regular co-driver Laura Wardle is off on an outing to the Porsche factory in Germany with the Porsche Owners Club. So Jonathan all the way up from Taunton and Somerset by himself this weekend and running himself in class. His class record was set in the wet in June. There's a new class this year, the C3. So he's going to break his class record substantially. It's a 53.98, not surprisingly. Good improvement because the conditions are so much better. And now Donald McCaskill, who was the fastest tin top yesterday. His record is a 44.58. He's not going to quite beat that today. It's a 45.92 for Donald. Jeff Tremlow, 81, number 81 years of age, all the way up from Hale in Cornwall, which is almost as close to Land's End as you can get. Jeff been coming to Doune for many, many years. Every meeting we see him up here. Very loyal to Doune and loves coming up and running on this hill. Stirling Subaru Impreza. Slightly less potent tune than Donald McCaskill's Mitsubishi. If you ever get a chance to go to Paddock and have a look at Donald McCaskill's Mitsubishi, have a look at the fuse at the back of the car. Probably got a whole family of rabbits in there because it's enormous. And then the Sandy Reid and the Lego coming up, running out of order, obviously got the car fixed. Jeff Tremblow's time at 55.41. So going back now to class going back to class A6 actually in the Interclub class for Sandy Reid in the rotary engined Luiga Mark II. Made in Aberdeenshire this car, 53.72. It's actually exactly equal to John Rogers' time in the class. They are first equal in the class, 53.72. So after the saloon of McCaskill and Twemlow announced the Caterham High Boosters, two Caterham High Boosters. The first one, Phil Goff, up here from the north of England, 50.57. And then we have Stuart Doune, local driver in his Caterham High Booster. And then the first of our sports leaders cars is Matthew Price in his Radical. SR3 1600cc Suzuki engine for Matthew Price. Time for Stuart Dowd of 45.57. So it's a second away from Gary Dixon's record in that class. Matthew Price has been fairly dominant in the class this year. Alan McDonald's had a tough time to beat him in the fourth this season. But now in Alan's home hill. Time for Matthew Price 43.86. Target out in this supercharged 1300cc Suzuki engine, ex-Rob Stevens Force. Yeah, it's good half a second slower than Matthew Price to Garden Gate, and they're over a second slower by the time he gets to Junction. Dollars at 46.45, and then we come to a very small, surprisingly 1100cc class this weekend. Charlie Forsyth has been transferred to the Interclub class. Jonathan Fletcher will now start in his OMS, as is Andrew Patterson, who's left just Richard McTorsian in the Raptor and Will Hamer in his OMS. In the class, Will scored points at Prescott recently in the BMW now engined OMS, and if we'd seen Richard McTorsian, he was also a BMW engined in the GWR Raptor. So for the first time for probably many years, no Suzuki engine runners in this class this weekend. So we don't see Richard McTorsian, so I'm not sure what's happened to him. I've also seen Jimmy Harris's car stopped in the assembly area, which is good news for him. So no Richard McTorsian, now into Steve Owen, so we're into a couple of double drivers here. To Steve Owen, the OMS, sharing Harry Pick's car today. Steve, the builder of these OMS cars. Record is over 40 consecutive appearances here at Doune in various OMSs. Generally finds one to share with somebody. There's Harry Pick, and there's the 2.65 for the Cosworth XD engine OMS. But Steve Owen is looking to qualify for a runoff today. Steve Owen, 43.53. Now Nicola Mingies, former record holder here at Doune. Epic battle here with Olivia Cooper a couple of years ago, trading a record between them. And Nicola still holds the ladies' record at Shells de Walsh, the GR55B. Originally Martin Groves won the British Hillclimb Championship 20 years ago this year, 2005, and then followed up with 3 more championships afterwards in the same car. So almost a veteran, this car off the hills, still doing well. Raced by Wallace Mingy, 2014 to 15 time. Share with Tom New, and then gone to Dave Uren. That's Nicola, 40.03. 40.03 from Nicola. Still a bit away from the hill record. For the latest hill record is a 38.23. But that's a good time from Nicola, 40.03. And that is the end of that batch. So look at the classes here we've had so far in the British runners. Class A1, Tom Weaver leads from Richard Weaver, 53.32 to 56.35. Richard Andrews running himself, not far off the class record actually. The class record was set by Robbie Burrell, and of course came in 49.41. So Richard Andrews just 2/10 away from that. I missed that the first time through. Stuart Wood rather leads John Wood by just over a second in Class C1. Stuart Wood 47.62 from Jock Ramsey 50.21 and Alan Reid 52.49 in Class C2. Jonathan Williams with a new class record against his old wet time class record 53.98. Donald McCaskill 45.92, Jeff Tremlett 55.41. In Class C4, which is in the new class for four-wheel drive cars. Class D, it is a Stuart Dow 45.57 from Phil Goff, 50.57. Then Matthew Price leads Alan McDonald, 43.86 from 46.45. And Will Hamer a 40.65, which should be good enough to get him into the runoff actually. At the moment, Nicola Ming is his fastest time of the day, a 40.03 from Will Hamer, 40.65, and Stephen Owen, 43.53, and Rich has just put that up on screen for me to talk to. So of those runners on there, certainly the top three are probable qualifiers for the runoff. Matthew Price is not registered for the championship, just for the cup. And the next championship registered runner, so far we haven't had any more apart from the top three. But we've still got another another 15 possible contenders for qualification. A bit worried to see Jimmy Harris's car was parked up there at the side of the track before the start line, and Jimmy not in the car, and no run for Jimmy in that run there. Only no Richmond Tossian in the Raptor either. So the Richmond Tossian Raptor, if you've been before, the blue Raptor, built up in Aberdeenshire by Graham White Jr. That was the ex-Robert Kenrick car. Robert holds the class record, as you may see in the programme, 37.76. And down in Gurston, down in Wiltshire, when Robert set the record, he took it away from a guy called Rob Barksfield, who was driving the PCD Saxon, who you should have seen in the hands of Andrew Patterson today. But unfortunately, Andrew had a problem at the last meeting he was at and is unable to bring the car this weekend. But the PCD and the Raptor, and in fact, Jonathan Valle's President, are all designed by ex-Lotus Terry Ogilvie. So not much happening in the chat these days on the stream. Not much relevant information on the hill climbs at the moment. So come on, guys, get some interesting stuff up there, and we will to spread it to the world. This is Mark Schlanker, number 97, and then no number 96 at the moment, Andy Short, who's a possible contender. 97 Mark Schlanker. So Andy Short this morning in practice, so I'm not sure why he's not here in his running position, but we'll maybe see. Hope he's maybe running out of order. But this is Gary Hill next. So I know Andy Short at the moment. Time there for Mark Schlanker, 42.39. 42.39, which puts him above Steve Owen actually. And Mark is registered for the championship, so he could get to the runoff, but we're now pushing Gary Hill back from the line. Oh. So Gary Hill been pushed away into the holding area, so we seem to be dropping like flies here, the single-seaters. Next car coming up is Darren Gumbley in his 4th TA. Point score in the championship this year. Darren currently lying 14th in the championship with 11 points. Best score coming at Bully Bay. Bully Bay in Jersey when he does 6th and an 8th. So 11 points for Darren Gumbley, 14th in championship. Gary Hill's now come back out behind Darren Gumbley, so maybe we'll see Gary Hill after all, but certainly Darren waited to leave the line. And he's still waiting. 5s are down. And he leaves the line, Darren Gumbley. 2.17, that's a good start off the line there. Just slightly slower than Nicola Mingus at 2.14. Darren will certainly look to qualify for the runoffs today. Another driver who's sharing the car this year, but just himself today. That's a 41.32 from Darren. Puts up into 3rd place of qualifiers at the moment. Gary Hill is now up through onto the meadow. Not going particularly quickly though. So maybe his issue he had at the start line is still there. He's certainly not going at full speed. Just up the top of each Bray. And yes, definitely Gary Hill's car is not running very well. Gary Davies on the hill in the low reaches. So he's not ready for the championship. They finished the top at 59.88, and something definitely badly wrong with that car. Now after Terry Davis, we'll get record holder, class record holder, Jonathan Barley in the Predator. Running a similar engine to the Davis, a Terry Davis Rama V8. So time for Terry Davis is 47.51. So Jonathan Valley should go to top of the qualifiers of this one. There's 5 seconds to go by. He's running red sectors at the moment. And his best time of the day. Up to top beats great. Lovely car. You can't believe this car is nearly 20 years old. And the first appeal for Graham White Jr. with an Arrows V10. Jonathan across line 37.39. Not that far off his class record. 37.39. Straight to the top of the qualifying pile. Tucker now. Well, he went off in practice this morning, buckled the front wheel. But he's, I think he also maybe bent the suspension, but that's now been fixed. So it's good to see he's back on the hill. He's come a long way from home down in the southwest of England. Ian Tucker across the line, 51.45. Now look out for this chap. This is Alex Coles. And the 1.3 supercharged Force TA. Something that scares me. But Alex going really well here. Not quite as fast as John. And he's slowed down coming out of today. Looked a bit slow coming out of junction there, I'm not sure. But he's still perfect things for the class, obviously. But that is a slow run. He's now 35 days. The car's not running that well now. 35.1. He's going well over the 40s. And he's cruising along the finishing straight. So 47.10 for Alex. So something not right with that car. Paul Hames now just a first attempt and not quite off the line there. Paul didn't take a practice run this morning. He's away this time. So with that poor run for Alex Coles, could see an opportunity for somebody else to get into the runoff. Alex is running 9th for the championship at the moment. And Paul Hames, you've seen now, is running 10th. Having a good battle with David Warburton, who's not here. David Warburton just 3 points behind in the 11th position. There's Paul Hames now up through the S's. And across the finishing line. .17 for Paul Hames. Put him second fastest qualifier. Here's Paul Croot in the Jaguar engined OMS 28. And then it's Simon Jenks in the new car's Force TA, 2.5 litre Opel Cosworth KF engine. No sign of Terry Graves. Terry had issues yesterday with the gearbox. Terry's last run yesterday was done with first gear because he issued with the gearbox, so maybe we won't see Terry today either. So a time for Paul Croot is a 51.91. Simon Jenks, could he get into the runoff, I wonder? He's certainly a 42.80 for Simon Jenks, 42.80. Overall, Harry Pick now in the OMS. Really seen Steve Owen in this car who did a 43.53. So Harry Pick across 40.66 for Harry Pick. And we've now got Andy Short. there because Sean Gould was doing a large number of tire warmers right outside my door. Andy Short, who we missed earlier on, so Andy 43.35 for Andy Short. Oh, Sean, I would say Sean Gould leaves the line, but he doesn't. The difficulty yesterday with this car. He spent a lot of time last night fixing it. And he's away this time. A very quick run yesterday, fastest overall yesterday in practice. At the moment, pink up through junction, onto Meadow. So I'm still doing the pink run, so the quickest qualifier so far as he comes across the finishing line. In a 35.73 for Sean Gould. 35.73. Dave, you're in now in the veteran Gould GR55. Dave has come in 6th in the championship. And a close battle with Trevor Willis, who we'll see next. Dave up to the top of the hill. It's 36-second run. This one 36.73, exactly a second slower than Sean Gould actually, but goes second fastest qualifier at the moment. That it looks like Mark Schlenker could get into the first runoff. Trevor Willis is actually not starting either at the moment. Oh, no, there's no sound, it's just not turning over. So you can see on the screen Trevor's just sat there and there's nothing happening. He had an interesting little off yesterday, but he's not... So see at the moment it's just Trevor Wallace and Will Hall to run. Bottom three qualifiers who are on the bubble are Simon Jenks, Andy Short and Stephen Owen. As I say, it's quite difficult sometimes to hear the commentary here if there's a car outside my box. So I'll do my best to try and not talk when there's too much noise going on outside. Trevor's been pushed now to start. It does start. So hopefully he'll get away. Up the line now. Trevor Willis, number 5. 3-time HillClimb champion. Still waiting him back a little bit. Trevor didn't really have any chance to warm his tyres up for that with that issue. So he's got to beat a 42.8 to qualify. He's away. 2.77 off the start line, not his quickest. Up into Garden Gate. Tail wags at Garden Gate, up through the avenue, up to Junction. And on to Meadow. No problem so far. He's spraying through the S's. And that's a safe qualification there for Trevor Willis, a 38.34, puts him 5th in qualification at the moment. But here's Wallace Mingy's 4-time Hillclimb champion. 2nd overall this year, and likely to, if I stay in that position. And now he's had an issue getting away. Doesn't cross the line with his back wheels though. Push back into stage, as they say in drag racing. And Wallace away from the line, 2.09. I think the best of the day so far. So quick 5 tyre burners here from Will Hall, and then the engine stalled. So, started up again, he'll be coming up shortly. Wallace now to the top of the hill. That's a 36.43, goes 2nd quickest. Now the final runner of this class is Will Hall. 2.11, just slightly slower than Wallace. I also see that Jimmy Harris is coming to the start line for his run. Will Hall quick at the moment, and Wallace was slower than Sean. Sean was 12 seconds to Garden Gate. Well, the 2nd quickest to Junction, and we should get 35-second length of action Will here. Yes, just the 36.05 from Will Hall. Behind the Jimmy Harris leaves, having had to forsake his run earlier for an issue, but he's now got that fixed. So we have our 12 qualifiers for the 12 runoff. Jimmy Harris going across the line, and he's got a new class record for Jimmy Harris. Just what he needs to do, one he did, 1:47.30 for Jimmy Harris. A 10th of a second off Alex Coles' time, and that will give him a 10-point haul for this for that run, and brings him really in contention for the British Hillclimb Cup yet again. So although there's only 2 starters, and we'd only gain 6 points without a class record. Because the class record, he gets a full 10 points. So Jimmy Harris, great run there from Jimmy Harris, 47.30. We've quite a morning of records here. So that is the end of the class action, and we will now have a short break, I imagine, while we get the cars down to the bottom of the hill, ready to do their top 12 runoff. We usually have at least one double driver driven car, and we have the same again today because of Nicola Mingy, who qualified in the 8th position, and Dave Duran, who qualified in 4th position, sharing the car. So Nicola will be the first of our top 12 runners to run. She will go up the hill and then come straight back down to get the car ready for Dave to take over. But the top 12 will start off after Nicola. We have in 12th position Mark Schlanker, 11th Darren Gumbley, 10th Harry Pick, 9th Will Hamer. See, Nicola was in 8th, Trevor Willis is 7th, Paul Haim 6th, Jonathan Varley 5th, Dave Wren 4th, Wallace Ming is 3rd, Will Hall 2nd, and Sean Gould, the only runner in 35 seconds, is top qualifier. So just to catch up on some of the classes that we haven't told you about so far. Obviously no Richard Matossian coming up, so Will Hamer by himself in the 1100cc racing car class. We don't often say that. A 40.65 for Will Hamer. Alex Coles is Jimmy Harris, that class record 47.30 in the Formula Ford. Father Paul 53.64. Up to 1600 cc's is Darren Gumley 41.32, Mark Schlanker with a qualifying 42.39, and Andy Short 43.35, who was in 14th place, just missed out in qualifying. In the normally aspirated up to 2 litres of Jonathan Varley 37.39, close to his record, ahead of Terry Davis 47.51, and Ian Tucker 51.45. The shock non-qualifier, I think you could say, is in the next class where Paul Hems 38.17 qualifies, but unfortunately Alex Coles had an issue with the car. It's a 47.10, so Alex Coles will not qualify, does not qualify for the runoff. And then the final class, the racing cars over 2 litres. Sean Gould, number 1 in that class, 35.73 from Will Hall, 36.05. Wallace Mingus, 36.43. Dave Uren, 36.73. Trevor Willis, 38.34. We didn't see Paul and Terry Graves, so a number of non-starters. Even after yesterday's practice. So we'll get the official top 12 runners and order that. Just take off the screen earlier. It's Mark Schleicher number 12, but we'll certainly wait for the official. From the timekeepers. So now we can maybe spend some time looking at the British Championship, how it's folded out this year. Obviously Matt Ryder is the champion, having had 14 runoff wins out of 26. Wallace Mingus close behind, has 6 runoff wins. 3rd place is Will Hall, who won the first round at Prescott and then won again here at Doune back in June. But then it failed in the second run, so Will is an up and down season, but a lot of 3rd places for Will and 2nd places, but there's 2 wins. And 4th place is Sean Gould, who has 2 runoff wins, one here back in June, and then won at Prescott a couple of weeks ago. He's in the 4th place. 5th place is Trevor Willis, who is best of the year, has been 3 3rd places. Sorry, 2 3rd places for Trevor. And then we have Dave Uren. I'm just getting the official times now. Thank you. You'll be 10 or 15 minutes where we have a delay, as it says on the screen. Where was I? Dave Uren is 6th in the championship. He's 9 points behind Trevor. And then behind that is Alex Summers, who's having a part-time season this year. But despite that, he's still in 7th position in the championship. Just 10 points behind Dave Uren. Jack Cottrell, who's not here this weekend, and his Dallara is 8th. Alex Coles is 9th. And Alex had a chance to get close to Jack this weekend, but obviously not in this first run. And then Paul Hames is 52 in 10th position, David Warburton 49 in the 11th. It goes all the way down to Jonathan Varley, 12, Dick Saunders, and then Dan Gumbley. And we've had actually 41 drivers have qualified for at least one runoff this year. 41 altogether, but obviously the top 10 have been fairly dominant. The top 5 or 6, 7 are pretty much most rounds they're qualifying. Sean Gould had a spell in the middle where after Harewood he didn't go to Channel Islands, so he missed a few rounds in the middle. So everything Sean scores will count from now on. And it's just confirmation there from the timekeepers of the top 12 running order. So if you've got a program here on site and you want to fill in the names, I'll read them out to you in running order, which means that first one will be Nicola Mingies, 706 at page 18 in the program, page 18, 706 Nicola Mingies, straight back down again, then 97 Mark Schlanker, 99 Darren Gumbley, 111 Harry Pick, 90 Will Hamer, 5 Trevor Willis, 10 Paul Hames, 103 Jonathan Varley, 6 David Duran, 4 Wallace Mingies, 3 Will Hall, and 7 Sean Gould. So Sean gets the chance to go last today, rather than being the forerunner for Matt Ryder. So certainly he's been on form this weekend, the quickest in practice and quickest in that first class run. The numbers from top to bottom: 706, 97, 99, 111, 90, 5, 10, 103, 6, 4, 3 and 7. We got a tandem tour coming down the hill now. It's the top of Eastbury anyway. It looks at Alex Coles and Paul Hames. Both are turbocharged and supercharged cars. Had issues in that run. Did that mean that Paul may not get to run off? Yeah. So Alex Coles, we know had an issue. Paul qualified in 5th place, didn't he? So his car obviously ran okay, but now seems to be coming to a problem. Sixth place, Paul Hames qualified 38.17. So there's Alex Coles coming down, and shortly Paul Hames. So the question was asked on the earlier whether we think we could get a record this weekend here at Doune. Well, as I say, the record is Alex Summers is 34.21, which was set back in June 2022. And since that time, we've had one more in the 34s from Alex, a 34.29 in June 2023. But the quickest time in the runoff since then has been a 35.45, which was Sean Gould back in June 2024. So it's been a mixed weather, and also, as I say, issues with tyres this year has meant we've seen very little in the way of record breaking in the top classes in the runoffs. In fact, I don't think we've had any records broken this year in a runoff. And Sean's time there of a 35.73 was still over 1.5 seconds away from the record. I'm sure of an exciting time. We always have exciting runoffs, but they're always very close. But in absolute terms, may not be quite the times we expect. But who knows? Other classes are sure it's possible, but then they haven't had the same tyre issues as the top single seaters have had. The very first runoff here at Doune was held back in 1969. June 1969 was the first. When Alex Cole's now just turning his wheels by hand to get down the last part of the hill. He's over the lip at the first corner. He'll be down to the start line into Paddock on his own free will very shortly. And Paul seems to be coming down under power, so that's good. So Roy Lane was the very first winner of a runoff back in 1969, the 3.5 Techcraft Buick. His time was a 48.31. I can't recall, I was here, but I can't recall whether it was wet or dry that day, but the following year, Mike McDowell got the record, got the runoff in June and September. 47.35 and 51.72, which was definitely a wet time in September 1970. Now, the interesting thing is that car, for those who follow British hill climbing, the Mike McDowell car in 1970, the 2-litre Brabham BT30X, if you've been following the hill climbing on the stream or in person at the venues, that BT30X Brabham is now driven by Andrew Tippett in the classic car class with a 3.5 litre Buick engine in the back of it. But that car of Andrew Tippett's was a top class, top 12, top 10 runoff winner back in 1970. Apparently we've also got news that Will Hamer's clutch is slipping at the moment, so he's hoping it's going to be alright for the runoffs. We seem to have a few cars having issues today, end of the season perhaps. And yes, it's very good to see that Nicola has qualified for top 12 runoffs again this year. Certainly at the moment one of our top hill climbers, if not the top hill climber in Britain. Olivia Cooper taking time out at the moment. But going back to the runoff winners here at Doune, in recent years we've had definitely Sean Gould, Will Hall, Alex Summers, Wallace Mingies, Scott Moran as recently as 2022, and we also had a tie for the runoff in September 2019, the first runoff. We had a tie between Wallace Mingies and Alex Summers and a 36.08. As you go way back to the Gould GR55B, which is being run at the moment by Dave Uren and Nicola Mingies, it's set its first runoff win here was in June 2005. And then for the next 3 years, Martin Groves in that car won 12 of the 13 runoffs here at Doune in that GR55B, driven currently by Dave Uren. So all of 2005, all except one in 2006, all of 2007, all of 2008, or the 2 of 2008, and then 2009, 2 more 2010, and the last one it won here was in September 2010. So the good old GR55B certainly knows its way up the hill. And Alex Summers was his first runoffs win. We're actually here in September 2013, and that was a wet day, and he was in the 1.3 supercharged DJ Firehawk Suzuki at that time. If we go even further back to 2004, we find Paul Hames won a runoff in the Dallara Opel, 2.5 litre Opel, in a 38.08. So lots of those who are here today running have had runoff wins at Doune. The most unlikely winner here at Doune was probably back in September 1974. It was a short course. The actual course for 3 years, the start line was up past the first corner. Just at the top of the crest you could see just after the first corner. And it was shortened to that length for various reasons. And in September 1974, and I will remember it because the runoff came, it was only one runoff in those days, the end of a Sunday, and the first car on the line was Alex Brown in a 4.2 Palliser with a Repco engine, and he went up in 45.55, and then the rain just came down in torrents, and Alex Brown won his one and only HillClimb top 10 runoff in a day when everybody else was snookered by the rain. So that goes back a long way, 51 years now. So we're still waiting now for the cars just to get ready for the cars to refuel. They don't carry much fuel, these cars, obviously. Refuel, cool down, maybe change tyres, and just get them fettled for the runoff. So we should be starting very shortly. Time of the moment in Britain is just 10 past midday. So I imagine if we get the cars out shortly, we'll be lunching at about 12:30. So if you follow hill climbing across the world, the good thing about internet these days is you can go to any website and find out all about hill climbing. Now here in Britain we have a number of websites which have been set up to supply data, shall we say, and also manage championships, etc. Obviously the British Hillclimb Championship has its own website, britishhillclimb.co.uk, and that includes dates of all the events, results from all the events, and a list of all the entrants. I shall carry on with some more websites after Nicola has been up. She's now been pushed round to the assembly area. And we can expect a few tyre warm-ups. That's Nicola on the line, waiting for the green light. And she's away. 2.19 for the first 64 feet. Past Oak Tree up towards Garden Gate. Only won one car at a time during runoffs. Up to junction in 21.26. Speed of 107 approaching junction. East Bay. And through the S's in 33.03. So is it going to be a low similar car to Darren Gumbley, who will follow him up? So going back to the websites, there's a British Hillclimb.co.uk. Then if you enjoyed the streams here from Rich Danby, he also runs a website which contains details of every runoff in the British Championship since 1947, or in pre-runoff days the top point scorer. So HillClimb.uk is the data source for all British Hillclimb Championship statistics for drivers, venues and years. There's a website called hillclimbing.org, hillclimbing.org, which lists all the class records for all the main line British hill climb venues like Doune, Shelsley, Lodge, Prescott, etc. So hillclimbing.org is the place for class records. If you want to see live scoring from hills, then you go to resultsman.co.uk, resultsman.co.uk, and again you can see times from hill climbs, not just championship hill climbs, but lots of other hill climbs and sprints going back at least 20 years on there. TSL-timing, tsl-timing.com do timing from Gurston down and a lot of race circuits in Britain. And then there's motorsport.scot, which is all things Scottish speed eventing on there. So a number of venues or websites where you can see and find out data from and for the British Championship. Here's Mark Schlanker on the line in his fourth TA. And he's away. 2.32 for Mark Schlanker. To Oak Tree and round Garden Gate. A bit of puff of blue smoke there coming out of Garden Gate. But he's safely through Garden Gate. 22.26 to junction, for a second slower than Nicola, but 101 miles per hour. Up into the S's. And he's one at the top of S's. He's just going round to East Bray. So unfortunate Mark there. His first run off ends in a fail. So it's harmless spin, top of his Bray, everything's okay, car's fine, it looks like Mark's okay. He just spun it at the top of his Bray. Recovery vehicle I think is going up, probably to pull him off the grass, because I imagine he might be beached up there. It's a bit of a crest in the grass verge, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. So a bit of a delay now while we rescue Mark from the top of the hill. So yeah, so all these sources are available for you to find out at British Hill Climbing. Been collected avidly and assiduously over the years by many people. In the British Hillclimb Championship, which this is the penultimate weekend this year, the British Hillclimb Championship started back in 1947. View here of Mark going into East Bray. Quite fast on the top. You can see the star starting to spin the tail out as he goes over the crest. He's just beached, I think, on the outside of the hill there. Out of the car, and they have to get. So the British Hillclimb Championship started in 1947, was won by Raymond Mays, co-founder of BRM, and an ERA R4D, a famous car from the pre-war era, the ERA, English Racing Automobiles. Yeah, Mays won in 47-48, and the car itself, the ERA R4D, won it again in 53 and 54 in the hands of Ken Wharton, who became the first four-time hill climb champion in 1954. So the British Hill Climb Championship is the oldest motorsport championship in the United Kingdom, British Isles. Not quite the oldest in the world. I think you'll find if you go to America that the IndyCar racers in all various forms will claim that there is the oldest continuous championship, having been started back pre-war. So the IndyCars will claim they're the oldest championship in the world in various forms over since pre-war all the way through IndyCar, kart, and in the Indy Racing League. But certainly Hillclimb Championship, British Hillclimb Championship, the oldest in Britain. In fact, the Scottish Hillclimb Championship began back in 1970 and was won for the very first time by a Formula Ford car driven by Ted Clark, Lotus 51. So the question now on there about whether there were more six-wheel Formula 1 cars than the Tyrrell. Because we're talking about the March 240, which appeared in the hills in the hands of Roy Lane. In fact, there were 3 attempts at a six-wheel Formula 1 car. Obviously, the Tyrrell was the most successful, with 2 force-wall front wheels, but some of the benefits were probably negated by the drag from the rear wheels, which were in those days quite enormous. Williams then developed a four-wheel drive rear four-wheel driven car, four-wheel drive car, the Williams FW08, and it was not a success, and it became the FW08, in which Keke Rosberg won the World Championship in 1982. But in fact, if you look at the FW08 that Rosberg won, it's a very short car because it was built, originally the FW8 was built to allow for the 4 wheels at the back. And then March produced a 4-wheel rear car as well, the March 240, based at that time, probably 19 on the 761 Formula 1 car. Again, it was not a success, and Roy Lane did bring it to the hills and competed in it in the late 70s, and then converted it back to 4 wheels later on. There was, in fact, a time that Graham White Jr. was looking at building an 8-wheel electric single-seater car after the Predator. It was pictures of it were seen in the press at the time. Never came to anything, but that was certainly back in the 2010 or so. He was looking at possibility of having an electric 8-wheeler. Again, designed by Terry Ogilvie, who designed the Predator, but that never came to light. Mark Schlanker now getting away, been taken off the curb, who was beached on the verge, who was beached, and now, well, the recovery vehicle heads back down again. So another short delay here, and then we'll be back in the go with Darren Gumbley. Okay, so should be back very shortly online with Darren Gumbley. Yes, the sun is shining here. Look at the sun on the screen there. Beautiful sunny day here at Doune. I think it's probably still a bit chilly out there, but in the sun I'm sure it's quite warm and pleasant, relaxing in the paddock or on the hill. Here comes the recovery vehicle back down to the start. So if you're watching the online stream, the reason you'll know from the noise from the cars and my microphone, I am in a building just to the left of where the recovery vehicle's parked. So with the door open, you get the full noise of the warm-up, tyre warm-up. I've shut the doors now for this top 12 challenge. And here comes Darren Gumbley. I say Darren is running 14th at the championship, 11 points so far this year. In a fail at Harewood, they did an 8th and a 6th at Bully Bay, a 9th at Val d'Isère, a 10th at Wiscombe, and 11th at Prescott. Just 3 tyre warmers there for Darren, up towards the line. 600cc, shared it earlier in the year with Paul Jones, who qualified at Bully Bay for the runoff. And that's Darren off the line, 2.08. That's the quickest time so far to the first 64 feet. Bottom reaches of the hill through the tunnel at Oak Tree to Garden Gate. Quickest so far, quicker than Nicola as well, 103 miles per hour. And just slower there than Nicola at the Avenue, that to the hall, up the hill to the junction. Sabs the pile of these smaller engine single-seaters into the S's, and he's slightly down on Nicola. Is going to be a 41 second run, I think, for Darren. Oh, it's a 40.83. 40.83, so it goes into second position. So now Harry Pick. Harry qualified this year. Harry actually hasn't qualified this year, but I know he did qualify last year for runoff in this car. So no points, no runners for Harry yet. This year's his first run of the year in the OMS 28. 2.65 Cosworth in the back. 2.27 to first 64 feet. And the quickest so far to Garden Gate. And 132 through to the junction and 20.47 to below 21 seconds. The quickest at the moment near this 8.8 up on Nicola. Just a little bit there, but Doune through the last corner. Good clean run. It's a 39.34 for Harry Pick. 39.34, which is over a second and a quarter quicker than his qualifying effort. So now Will Hamer in this 1 litre BMW engine OMS 28. Will qualified at Prescott 2 weekends ago and got a 10th position for 1 point in the championship in this car, which originally they had a Kawasaki turbocharged engine in the back of, and decided this year to go the BMW route, and it's been very successful for him and brother Ben. Junction 21.22, which is the second quickest so far. Safely through the top of East Grey and the S's. And he's going to be in the 40s, 40.20 for Will Hamer, 40.20. Half a second quicker than qualifying. Goes into second position. So more points guaranteed for Will. Next up with Trevor Willis. 3-time champion, not having a successful season as he has in the past. Up and down season. Nothing better than 2 third places. Qualified in 38, I'm sure he can go below that. Certainly his last run there, he would have had cooler tyres than he might have expected. He's a bit slow off the line as well the last time. That's better for Trevor, 2.1 off the line. That's like 3/10 of a second gain already from that time. He's up a second up. Garden Gate, 23 and into 19 seconds at the junction, 19.07. This is Trevor on a charge. 1.5 seconds up on the current leader. 2.5 now. Trevor really flying along the top. 36.46. 36.46 from Trevor Willis. That is going to be a tricky time to beat. So the moment it's Trevor Willis from Harry Pick, Will Hamer. So Paul Hames, having been told to top of East Bray to come back down again, is down now here at the start line ready to go in this 1.3 turbocharged Gould GR59. The oldest of the Gould GR59 chassis that we have here. Doune, won a runoff here many years ago. He's so, 1.2 slower than the Trevor through the S's. Expected a 37.94 for Paul. 37.94 goes into second position. Now Jonathan Varley in the 2-litre Predator, great qualification in 5th position in a 37.39. His class record, which can't be matched because it's a runoff, but his class record is 37.06. And I'm sure he's been below that in a runoff before as well. Quickest off the line, 2.05. That Predator, the 2-litre Terry Davis Yamaha V8. And 19.04, just 300 quicker than Trevor Willis into the junction. So kind of get to 36s, losing the tail of the back toe each day, but carries on. It's slow now, 300 slower. Really quick out there, 36.45 for Jonathan Varley. That is a superb run from Jonathan. 36.45. Takes the lead by 100th of a second. And smashes what would have smashed his class record. If he could have done that, certainly go in the record books as the fastest, probably the fastest time by a car of that capacity in any run here at Doune. So that sets a target for Dave Uren and even for Wallace Mingies. I mean, Wallace qualified 36.43. Jonathan's just done a 36.45. And David a 36.73 in qualification. So can this car add to as many runoff wins here at Doune? Different line is at 2.15, so not as quick as in some. It's quicker up through to Garden Gate, 12.09 and 18.3 into 18 seconds now at junction. First driver into 18 seconds up to junction. So this is looking good for a 35 second run. QS is 29.1, again near a second quicker than Varley. 35.61 for Dave Uren. 35.61, that's a great run. Just a reminder that the hill record is actually 34.21. So we're still running 1.5 seconds away from that hill record. The local favourite Wallace Mingies now. If you hear that engine warm-up, tyre warm-up, that's through a wooden door. But Wallace on the line in this 3.3 litre engine, Cosworth XD. 4 times Hillclimb champion. Right away, and as usual Wallace with a 2 second, great start for Wallace, 2 seconds for the first 64 feet. So up and Dave again, through Garden Gate. He's a quarter of a second up and Dave. Into 11 seconds, 130 through the junction and 18.12. 2 tenths quicker still. He's got East Bray. So neat and tiny there through the top of East Bray. Oh, he's lost some time there. So that disappeared too. Didn't look bad, but he's got to cross the line now. And he picks it up again. 35.45. 35.45 takes Wallace into the lead. So Will Hall now, we saw Will winning back in June here in the Gould. A dampish day. Another Gould GR15, can he, this is a quick start, 1.98. Will's always under 2 seconds at the start of a runoff. Could be quick up through to I'm sure. A bit slower than Wallace at the moment. 129, 18 again, still slightly slower, just a 10 slower up through junction. So it's nip and tuck between these drivers at this stretch of the hill. He's picked up time over Wallace, 0.19 up. So cutting it across. So 35.17 takes the lead. 35.17. There now Sean Gould in the championship winning car, as driven by Matt Ryder. Gould GR59 built down in Newbury at the family factory. Father David Gould up here this weekend. First Gould car appeared way back in 1984. Hopping and banging, his rate line. 2.05, a bit slow to start with, but quick through the first corner. Line up towards Grand Green Race. Should be 1.99, very similar time to Will Hall. This is how I was talking about. 1300 slower at the moment. Very close to your race. Still slightly slower than Will. Just by less than 2 tenths though. Powers across line 35.50. And there's a third place for Sean Gould there. So, win there for Will Hall, 35.17. Second place goes to Wallace Mingus at 35.45, and third to Sean Gould, 35.5. Davey Red also the 35 to 35.61. Then an amazing time from Jonathan Varley, 36.45. Ahead of Trevor Willis by 100th of a second, 36.46. And then Paul Hames, 37.94. In 8th position, Harry Pick, under 40 seconds, 39.34. And Will Hamer in a 1 litre car gets 2 points for 9th position, 40.20. Nicola Mingus, 40.30 in 10th. Darren Gumley, 40.83 in 11th. And unfortunate Mark Schlanker fails to finish and pick up any points. That probably shouldn't make much difference in the championship standings. I mean, it gives Wallace 10 points. He has to drop a score of 6, so he just picks up 4 points today. Sorry, not Wallace for 10 points. I'm sure what I'm saying. Will for 10 points. Will Hall, 10 points. He counts all those. He goes to 199 points for the season so far. Wallace, as I said, second, he gets 9 points. But then he has to drop a 6, so picks up 3 points. It's 209. 8 points for Sean Gould, which leaves him in 4th place. 7 points goes to Dave Uren, which gives him 103 points, getting closer to Trevor Willis. But Trevor picks up 5 points for 6th position. So just 7 points between Trevor and Dave going into the last 3 rounds of the championship. But Jonathan Varley picked up 6 points there. So 31 points in total for Jonathan in 12th position. 4 points for Paul Hames, which gives a good buffer over David Warburton now. Particularly if he could repeat that this afternoon. 3 points for Harry Pick, his first of the season. 2 for Will Hamer, add to There's one from Prescott, gives him 3. 1 point for Nicola. Nicola had scored this year at some point. She had scored 3 points back in Craig Antlick, so she's got 4 points now. 11 for Darren and 12 for Mark Schranker. So no change in the championship positions. A bit of a closure between Trevor and Dave Uren in the middle, 5th and 6th positions. And Paul Hames pulling away a little bit more from David Warburton in 10th place. So that's it for the moment. We'll be back online at 1:30 for this afternoon's action. So 1:30 here this afternoon, a separate stream, so you can switch off this stream and we'll start a new one for the afternoon runs at 1:30. Thank you all for joining in.